Just give people a few minutes to get in, Max.
Sounds good. I like how we're matching today a little bit too. Didn't notice that until now.
Well, our secretaries are doing great things together. Hey, hey.
Nice
All right.
switch up there.
Yeah. Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to the fourth episode of my LinkedIn Live events. I still don't have a title for this, but just having a good time today. Happy Friday. Here with my man Max Sano. What's up, Max?
Me. How you doing? I'm doing well. It's
Max,
a
thank you.
beautiful day.
It's oh my god. If you're in New York right now, if you're looking at it's like 82, 83 degrees, not a cloud in sight. Love it.
Yeah, it's nice to see.
Max was telling me right after this he's gonna head over, get a little chance to go outside for a few minutes in between meetings, right, Max?
It's important. Yeah, I'm trying to enjoy this sudden shift in weather. Get some space outside away from a screen.
Absolutely. So everyone, Jose Almanzar, environmental attorney here, trying to just spread some content, positivity, and something came to me a few weeks ago. I've spoken with a lot of young people and experienced professionals. People are struggling to either find work or struggling to pivot into the environmental space. Even though there's tons of opportunities, people are just finding it a little difficult to, enter the space. So I connected with Max a few weeks ago. We met through LinkedIn, and it became very clear to me that Max is someone who has his pulse on multimedia platforms. He started the Greenzine, and it's a platform. I'll let Max kind of tell a little more about what he's up to, but he's doing some great things. And I figured, hey, let's have a chat with Max because he's about to graduate from graduate school later this year, and he's been looking for opportunities and creating opportunities. So anyway, Max, why don't you take a few minutes, introduce yourself to our viewers, and tell us what you're up to.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jose, for that short little teaser about my life and what I'm up to. My name's Max Sano. I was born and raised in New York City. I'm in Astoria, and I finished my undergrad, my bachelor's degree last year at Franklin and Marshall College. I was studying political science and environmental studies, and I knew that I wanted to get involved in the environmental policy space and advocacy space. I had done some organizing as the president of the student-run club at FNM, Environmental Action Alliance, and coordinated with groups like Citizens Climate Lobby chapter of Lancaster and the Alliance for Chesapeake Bay, which does conservation work. And so I'd had experience in different areas of the environmental advocacy space, be it traditional conservation work or trying to get through it through grassroots policy space. And it was really just the pandemic that made me reconsider the trajectory of what I wanted to focus on, because for those that don't know, Franklin and Marshall is in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which has a legacy of very robust farming community, both the generation family farms, but also big Amish community presence in farming through that as well. So I was very much immersed in that while I was at college, and I decided as a way to communicate some of my interests with some of my peers and just to have an opportunity to connect with others. When you're in college, it's easy to just get lost in writing and researching. So I wanted to create a platform or a space for people to communicate, even if we all couldn't be in the same physical space. And so when I was social media chair of the environmental club, I started Greenzine as an email newsletter, so students could communicate their research, their interests, be it outside of the classroom or in the classroom, through whatever medium they wanted to. And so it started off with students talking about neurotransmitters in our brain that bring us happiness, to plastic pollution research in Belize that a student was doing in their undergraduate degree. And I feel like that really, that spectrum of ideas is what really made me think, oh, we can talk about these issues in a way that transcends some of the ways that I thought about them in a traditional classroom setting and actually could complement that. So a few months passed, and I thought, oh, other people in my network, both in and out of Franklin and Marshall, were interested. I was writing for a group called Planet Forward, which has another great, amazing cohort of young writers and researchers, and it kind of inspired me to make my own website. So with some other classmates, we designed a website, and we've been publishing people since spring of 2021, almost a little over 2 years now, and we've been able to publish 50 young people, either just getting into college or a few years into their career experience. And it's just been a really exciting opportunity for me to not only toil through these issues that I experienced firsthand, but also um, engage in peer-to-peer mentoring, because there's so much, I'm sure Jose and I would go into, imposter syndrome that young people face, that are just joining this space. And as someone that's felt it myself, I realized that you just have to put yourself out there, and the world is your oyster.
Yeah,
And
so let me ask you, Max. So you set up the Greenzine as a for-profit or nonprofit?
it's a nonprofit
Okay.
organization.
And have you been able to, with the nonprofit status, have you been able to attract, investors, business partners, or receive grants or anything like that to help you kind of expand and scale up?
So in our first few years, we were able to acquire micro grants from my university, my undergrad university, but also from other organizations such as the Mary Kemp Foundation, which provides social entrepreneurs some seed funding to do projects like this. That was before we received nonprofit status. And ever since then, we've been able to apply for a few grants, still waiting to hear back on the status of those. But it's been it's been an interesting cycle as someone that's come from being a researcher, a writer, to being a grant writer, to being a team manager. It's a test of uh, what, like I said earlier, just putting yourself out there and um, figuring out how to delegate and figure out what kind of team do you want to have. And it
So
wasn't something I thought about too much before. It was sort of learning on the fly.
I mean, was there, because taking a project, something that comes from within you to then actually following through, was this something that you did on your own, or did you, to launch this, you really had a collective that all of you decided we're going to do this together? How was that process for you?
It's an interesting question because I was lucky enough to join the UDAL network, UDAL Foundation being one of the premier environmental scholarships that you can get in the United States. And I learned from other young people that had either started their own nonprofits or were engaged in environmental advocacy. There is a community here, and we have support systems if you're interested. So one of my cohort members, he had gotten assistance to start his nonprofit through pro bono legal services of a firm, and through that connection and just telling him about what I was interested in and where I was taking the Greenzine, he was able to connect me with that firm, and I was able to pitch to them what we've been doing and where we want to go, and was able to get support through that. And honestly, it's been within the last year, specifically ever since we received nonprofit status, that our core team has really formed. And it came from just reaching out to some of my mentors and asking, hey, this is what a project that I've been working on, and I'm trying to get other young people to be part of the leadership of this team. And we've been able to grow to a team of 5 to 7 core members that are helping me with writing the grants, with editing the pieces, with doing our social media. So it's kind of a yes and a no. When
Mhm.
I started, it was me, but I learned how to grow into what we are today.
Now you also have and forgive me if I'm misstating this, but it's either a fellowship or you have I know that you also you have a full-time job, and you're also running the Greenzine, correct?
I have 2 part-time jobs, which is a full-time job. Yeah, I work at my graduate school, NYU's Career Center, and I am a writing and research intern for Food Tank, think tank
Okay.
for food issues.
All right. So anything else? Any other jobs you have, Max? Are you driving an Uber too, man? Like, what's up?
I did used to do Uber Eats actually for a few months in undergrad, but not anymore.
So, would you encourage other people, let's say, recent graduates or people that just have a passion for the environment but aren't really sure, how to get started, or maybe are struggling to find the right employer? Would you encourage them to undertake a project like the Greenzine? It doesn't have to be the Greenzine, but something that they can create, on their own. Would you encourage people to go down that path?
I would say that you need to have a strong sense of what the idea is,
Mm,
because if you don't, you're gonna get people that may want to support you, not knowing how they can. Because for a long time, I knew that I liked the work that we were doing, but it really took me a year and a half before we even like started thinking about nonprofit to really understand what we're doing. Like, because it started as a newsletter, and I liked the idea of supporting my peers, but I didn't really think about the structure of what it could be until I started talking to other people, starting to ask questions. People were asking me questions about what I wanted from it. And in the environmental space, I'm sure you know, is there's at least something I've talked to people about is it better to start something new or to support the numerous organizations that might be doing similar work to you to build that capacity? And it's a give and take that is challenging to think about sometimes.
So I speak with a lot of young people and recent graduates who they come to me and say, "I just want to work in sustainability. I just want to work in the environment." And then I say, "All right, great. Well, what are you interested in?" And then they kind of go blank and mention one uh, cleanup project they had in their community, but they really don't know. They want to do something, which I love that energy. But I think to your point, the first step has to be identify, what is it, what area are you trying to get into? And for example, there's fashion, there's just dealing with conservation issues in nature, there's climate investing, stuff with climate change directly, things with animals, things with transportation, supply chain issues, buildings. I could go on, energy, education, food and agriculture, which is near and dear to your heart, Max. Food waste, which I know a few environmental attorneys and one prominent one that is building up a practice mostly on compost and food waste.
Hmm.
And then there's politics, health, tech, news media, which the Greenzine I would consider part of a news media kind of arm. So there are so many options, but here's the thing: the moment calls for everyone to be on board, and it doesn't matter which you choose. Just choose one, and you're already on your way.
Yes.
So let's talk about, you've spent the last few months, and you will be spending the next few months, Max, as your graduate program finishes. Pivoting to being in seeking a full-time opportunity towards the end of this year, beginning of next year. What are some strategies that you've been kind of employing out there to as you seek your next opportunity? What are you seeing out there?
I'm seeing that there is a lot of people my age, just starting college, maybe trying to do a career pivot, that are looking for the same jobs. And unfortunately, it can feel very competitive when you are just trying to get your foot in the door. And I think the one thing that I've noticed is uh, reaching out and asking for help, or asking for people to talk to about, okay, so what do I want to do? Like some of the young people that have approached to you, like that in and of itself, I view as career development. Because if you don't ask those questions before you start applying to places, your application just isn't going to be as strong as someone that may already have an exact sense of, what is my 5-year plan, what am I trying to get out of this role in order to get to chief sustainability officer of this X company, or to be the premier reporter for X organization on news issues related to climate. I think for me, having benchmarks and like a clear focus has been really helpful to me. And I know that I'm sort of at this point navigating between the world of being a nonprofit founder and trying to support other young people in writing and researching and harnessing their voices through media. But I also know that I am very passionate in food policy and research. I've interviewed with farmers, with members of the food supply chain over the last few years to get a sense of what some of the issues are and potentially some of the solutions. And it comes to like to me, like I have two very divergent paths that are in front of me, and it's been a lot of soul searching in the last few months and where I want to go in the next few months. And I've kind of come to terms, it's okay if I can't do both. Like if you try to do both, I mean, kudos to you if you can find a way to, but in my experience, you end up making it harder to do either one if you
Yeah,
can't focus on one. And
yeah.
that's sort of where I'm at this point.
Okay, so you have the Greenzine, you have your food and agricultural kind of policy brain. Where is your intuition kind of leading to? And I'm not putting you in a position to say that it's one or the other, because maybe you'll be in a place to do both. But what's pulling you right now? Where are you feeling being tugged at? Where's your heart being pulled?
I have mentors that really support the idea of Greenzine because it's something that I think trying to bridge this intergenerational divide between mentors that want to support young people entering the workforce and young people maybe not knowing or thinking about, like, okay, maybe not having mentors in their life, or if they do have mentors, not like being afraid that you're being a burden if you're asking for this or that, not favor, but just asking for like asking questions. Like I've definitely been able to get to the point where I am today just by asking questions, for trying to plan meetings with people, for what I might have perceived in the past as being annoying, but it's just being persistent. And for me, it's communicating what my interests are. I mentioned this to you earlier. I know where I want to work. I know the type of environment that I want to be in. And if you can communicate that clearly, it not only shows the confidence that you have in what you're interested in, but it also shows to potential employers like you're passionate about this. And I think that's where your application or your pitch, or however you want to frame it, will really shine through.
You had mentioned the importance of finding mentors. Um, and I'm going to use, uppercase M for mentor, like we'll call them your personal advisory group.
Yeah.
Let's just call it the 4 or 5 people that you turn to every year for advice, whether it's career advice, life advice, romantic advice, whatever it is. I'm assuming you have like those people that you turn to. Um, how do you go about finding those individuals, which could be with you for the rest of your life in a sense, versus I'm going to call it more transient mentors, lowercase m, people that you're just seeking for a moment to get some advice. And I've been on both sides of that. I've been an uppercase M. I have some people that I've just, for whatever reason, they've gravitated towards me and I towards them, and I've helped them kind of navigate the career. And then I have people that literally will find me on LinkedIn and will say, "Hey, Jose, I saw a post that you had. Can I just pick your brain for 20 minutes about this topic?" And I say yes to everyone because I'm very giving with my time, especially with young folks trying to do this work. But how do you, how have you personally, Max, gone about finding, either finding those people or maybe they found you?
Timing.
Hmm.
Like you can have a really like genuine interaction with people, like I'm sure you've had, when you've been not sure if you're going to be that uppercase M or lowercase m mentor. And honestly, sometimes it's just the timing. Like I would not be too hard on yourself if you have a few good conversations with someone and you get some really quality advice from that person, but then for whatever reason your paths will diverge, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's anything that you did or anything that they did. I think it's just um as someone that has a paranoid mind, sometimes it can get to you because it's like, oh man, did I say something, or did I not show my worth in a way? Did I not sell myself, in a way that I could have otherwise? And honestly, I think when you come at it from a genuine perspective, or just a genuine mindset, um, it shines through, and even if it doesn't last forever. Like, I've had mentors that, you know during the course of an internship, a supervisor can be a mentor, and then maybe you don't communicate much or at all afterwards, and that's okay. You can also have mentors that are your teachers, or for me, I did martial arts when I was young, and a lot of those instructors, I've learned some of the best lessons I could in my life about, like, modesty and courtesy. And I don't necessarily talk with them all the time, and that's okay. People go off in different directions. And I think, in terms of finding those uppercase M mentors, I think it has to be a mutual relationship. And not saying that you have to give proportionally to what you're getting, so to speak, because of course I'm just starting my career. I don't necessarily have uh, the level of expertise, let's say, or the proportionate amount that I can give. But people that, in my experience, that want to, like, to stay around, or decide to make the time to stay around, like, it's being persistent, and asking over and over again, even if you can't make that call this day or that day, being like, I'm still interested in talking to you. I know that today might not be a good day, or this week might not be a good day. Please let me know. I really look up to you. I think coming at it from a genuine place, at least for me, has helped me keep the mentors in my uppercase M mentors in my life. And it comes down to the chemistry sometimes too. It's
So
like that X factor.
so I'm gonna echo something you just said here, which I'll say it in a different way. As a mentee, and I've been on both sides. I have people that I look up to, and they're older and younger than me, and I reach out to them. And to your point, if you are a someone that is seeking advice from another person, career advice, connections, hookups, and you email them on a Tuesday and they don't get back to you, it's not that they're ignoring you. It's not they don't like you. Like, we have to undo this conditioning that most of us have, that that it's about us. It's not
Yeah,
about it's not about this song isn't even about you, man. Cindy, was that Cindy Lauper? I don't know. I'm dating myself. Um, right?
I
You're
don't know.
so vain. No, this song is about you. Listen, it's not about you. People are busy. People have kids. Yesterday, Max and I were supposed to speak at 6 p.m. and just have a tune up about this program. And I made the mistake of agreeing to speak with him at 6, knowing, well, damn, that my kids are up in it with dinner and bedtime routines at 6 p.m. But I agreed anyway to speak with Max. 6:38, I see 3 text messages from Max. Hey, one, I'm in the room. Two, is this still a good time? Hey, all good. We can talk later in the evening if you need to. And Max, I'm telling you, I didn't tell this to you last night, but that made me feel good. It made me feel good that, one, you actually showed up, and two, that you took the time to say, instead of possibly making, not that I would feel bad, but instead of kind of taking it the wrong way, you were like, you know what, something probably came up with Jose. Let me just let him know that I'm available later today. That made me feel good. I got back to you right away, and we spoke last night. The actionable item here for people that are seeking mentors is, it's okay if your mentor or the person you're hoping to speak with doesn't get back to you, or if even if they miss the meeting that you've been looking forward to. Give them some space. Life is messy, especially nowadays. So they don't get back to you on that Tuesday, hit them up again later that week on Thursday, maybe Friday, um, and make it okay to to not have the song be about you. So Max, one way to really stand out in your line of work as a young professional, which is one of the reasons why I really believe in the Greenzine. Something that's worked in the legal profession for decades is for attorneys to give presentations and to write articles. And when you do that, you stand out as a thought leader and as someone of authority in the space that you're trying to occupy. The problem with that is that many of those writing and speaking opportunities aren't made available to young people. They're not made available
No.
to young. They're not made available to young attorneys, and I'm only speaking from the attorney profession. Really, no one's really inviting young attorneys to write articles. No one's really inviting young attorneys to speak on panels. I'm trying to change that. Now, I'm a little age ambiguous. You can't really tell if I'm 25 or 55 because I shave my head and I have great skin. But something I'm trying to do is whenever I'm in a position to uh, plan a panel or a speaking engagement, I'm usually trying to find women, people of color, and young people to speak on those panels because um, those are typically the demographics that are left out. Now, what you're doing with the Greenzine, which is why I really believe in it, is you're giving a platform for anyone, but especially young folk who have an interest in the environment, sustainability, to write about what they're interested in. Can you speak a little bit about how young people and young recent graduates can use platforms like the Greenzine to stand out as thought leaders and start establishing themselves as experts in the subject matter that they're looking to get into?
I really appreciate you framing it in the context of the legal space, because that's why I did this, that it can apply to you if you want to be environment, if you want to be space, if you want to be in news, if you want to be a policy researcher or a scientist but want to communicate your research, if you're an artist and you've made influential or that if the environment and climate change has influenced the way that you view your work. I, for one, have made Greenzine a way so that it doesn't matter if you've been in college, period, if you've been studying these issues, if you can communicate in a paragraph or in a few sentences what you want to do and why, then I'm interested. I want to share that those ideas, because especially with the advent of AI in writing, which is a whole other can of worms that could be a podcast episode in and of itself. People want to hear your voice shine through. And I think it's something that, at least from my perspective, as someone that's been in different writing roles, either volunteer wise or through other types of forms, like, you have to cater it to the brand or the style of that platform, and that makes sense. We're all trying to stand out and provide a unique corner of content in the space, but that doesn't reflect the diversity and the intersectionality of what young people represent, both in the US but around the world. And so we're very open-ended with what you want to contribute. We have our sections: climate action, arts, lifestyle, science, but it can fall in multiple, it can fall in none of them. And that's what I find really revolutionary about it, is because we've been able to get people from across the world. Like right now, we're writing. One of our newest contributors is writing about marine coastal ecosystems in Lebanon, and how one of the last marine ecosystems or coastal ecosystems in Lebanon is being preserved through the work of scientists and young people. At the same time, someone that I met last month is interested in showcasing her poetry, and how that the wildfires out west have impacted her call to action as a young climate advocate. And you need these personal narratives as part of climate action and part of the discourse, so that when we're coming up with policy solutions as a collective, as a not just a nation in the United States, but nations across the world, like you need to have this diversity of thought leadership, like how you framed it, because you're not going to be able to present solutions in the way that meets the moment. And that's why I find it valuable. It's sort of um, like a clearinghouse, so to speak, of where our ideas are at, and maybe they're not exactly what we agree with. Everyone on the same platform agreeing with everyone's ideas, but that's okay. It's okay to disagree too. So
So I've interviewed a decent number of people before I became an attorney. Max, I was an environmental scientist, and within a few months, I was promoted to manage a team of about a dozen people. And as an attorney, I've also been in firms where I've been on interview panels, and I've been not responsible solely, but I've been on teams where I've had to give my input on whether firms should hire certain people for associate positions or paralegals. And I'll tell you, um, every time, and there's no exception to this, every time that I've seen an applicant with something at the bottom that says articles authored, I am immediately impressed by that person. I would hopefully they provide a link to it or a PDF attachment with their CV or their resume. But every time I'm impressed by that person, and almost every time that person has been the one that's been hired. It shows
Hmm.
that. So, for anyone listening here, and the broadcasting platform that we're using, I can't tell how many people are currently on, but hopefully it's just more than me and Max, and this will be recorded. But anyone listening here, if you have a chance to write something that you're interested in, find a vehicle to write it. It could be Max's The Greenzine. It could be medium.com. It could be LinkedIn. LinkedIn gives you
It
a
can be
platform.
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn gives you a platform to publish your own articles. So write something. And I'm not telling you to go use Chat GPT or AI to write the content for you.
Don't do
But
it.
if you're struggling to find ideas, or if you're having kind of initial writer's block, there's different tools that you can use to kind of get you out of your, discomfort. But I've authored a few articles, and I remember I was practicing, Max. I was 6 years into practicing law, and I had not written an article. And the idea of writing an article was something foreign to me, something completely that only experts did, only people that had been practicing for 20, 30 years had done. And when an attorney, environmental attorney, who's pretty famous, named Michael Gerard, he's at Columbia, and he's um, with Arnold and Porter, and the guy does everything. He reached out to me. I did a presentation through the New York State Bar Association, and he reached out to me and said, "Jose, would you be interested in writing an article for my publication?" And I said, "What, me?" I did this kind of thing, like, look behind me. Um, and I was very surprised. And then I agreed to it. And then I took the time to actually write the article. And I would absolutely, it was a valuable experience for me. And it got me out of my discomfort of writing. And since then, I've gone on to write. I try to write at least one or two articles that get published a year. But it's always a great topic of conversation in my interviews and distinguishes me from other people. So I'm encouraging anyone here to reach out to Max. And if you're interested in environmental issues, maybe it's something that the Greenzine isn't even covering, and that's fine. Max would be excited to speak with you about what you're interested in, want to write about. And it doesn't have to be long. You don't have to write a 30-page law review article. It could be a few hundred, 500 words, 600 words. It could be a poem. Just write, do something, create something. You'll feel great. Max, we have 10 minutes to try to get people employed doing good for the environment. Do I still have you with me?
Oh wow. Let's do it.
All right.
Yeah, I think I cut out for a second there, but can you hear me?
I can hear you now. I just want to make sure you're still with me.
Yep, I'm here.
All right, great. Now, we discussed for a few minutes some strategies for recent graduates, and that's, create your own thing. Like Max did with, the Greenzine. You can always just take a shot on yourself, create a company, create a nonprofit, try to find funding, try to find sponsors. Um, you can find mentors to not just give you advice, but also make those connections for you to get the jobs that you want. But you really should be clear with those mentors, Max, and I think you agree with me. Be clear with what you want to get from them. Because if you just go to them with no idea, then it's going to be really difficult for people to help you. All right. Um, what are some other things, Max, before I move on to experienced professionals? Like what are some things that you think somebody that's just graduating in May, let's say, and they want to get into environmental work, what are two or three things you think they should be doing?
I think that finding mentors that are around your age has been the most helpful thing for me as someone that is trying to start a media nonprofit, as someone that's trying to get into food policy space. I have had the privilege to be able to, through Greenzine, connect with a lot of other young people that are either trying to communicate issues through social media or through writing or through poetry, and just having conversations with people is so important.
So let's what does that look like for somebody who's paying attention to this and watching this video? What does that look like to them? Is that going on LinkedIn and searching for, keyword search what they're interested in, finding who shows up, and then just blindly reaching out? Do you have what's kind of strategic points that you would best practices?
I mean, keywords for one is obviously a really good route, just so that you can be, if you know what you're interested in, very, very targeted in your approach. But I think also one way that I've been able to find uh, work or ideas that I'm interested in, maybe it's just because I like to read and write. I like reading. I like finding articles on various environmental platforms such as Grist, Civil Eats, um, many others that I can provide and share with you all. But honestly, reading um, for me brings me a lot of comfort. It also um, finding list serves, so emails that will just continue to populate um, you with new webinars, with new um, community events. Like that is something that I've found to be very helpful. I know that some scholarship cohorts will do that if you're in a scholarship, but ask your professors, is there, like, for example, I believe there's one list serve that's very focused on racial equity in environmentalism. There's uh, countless others, and asking your professors or asking people for those resources has been helpful to me, just to diversify the thoughts or the way that I'm approaching some of this. But I guess the last quick thing I would say is you need to be transparent with your mentors or with a potential mentor about what you're interested in, because they will push you in a direction based off of what you say to them. And so if you're very coming off as being passionate in something, they might push you in that direction when you're actually really interested in something else, but you maybe are worried that about how it might feel to them. You don't want to let them down. You've already potentially fostered some kind of relationship. Don't fall into that trap, because you're not going to get the advice that you're looking for. And from my limited experience, they will respect you a lot more when it comes to um, what you stand for and what you're interested in, and will be able to give you that targeted advice. It's not
So
easy though.
it's not, so a few people that know this. I've been on a career transition over the last few months, and I'm very close to securing something with a top firm. I won't disclose that here, but or any details on that. But one thing that I did, Max, a few months ago when I decided to start on this journey was I took a real deep look, and I've been practicing law for 12 years, and I was a scientist for 3 years, and I've been in this kind of environmental space for over 20 years. And I had to do a deep internal look as to like, what am I really interested in? Like, what am I genuinely like? What do I not only what kind of impact am I trying to make, but what are the things that I actually enjoy doing? Because I could just say I'm an environmental lawyer, but that could mean a thousand different things. So I actually took the time to sit down and write, like with my thoughts. Like it's not enough to just think about these things when you're walking or when you're on a jog or when you're scrolling through Netflix. like take the time, or Hulu. I don't want to make it like this is a Netflix sponsored program, um, or Amazon, whatever.
Doom
Take
scrolling is dangerous. So yeah.
take the time to actually think about what is it that you're passionate about, what is it that you enjoy doing, and what are the skills that you want and that you have and you can bring to the table, and visualize like what is it that you want your life to look like. What are the things that you want to be doing? Some people want to be outdoors. Some people are data junkies that just want to be behind a computer crunching numbers, and there's there's space for both of those in this environmental kind of journey that humanity is frankly on, to course correct what we've been destroying over the last few hundred years. Max, do you think, and I'm going to say the answer is yes, but I'm going to tee it up for you. Do you think using job boards or relying on job boards is a good approach for people just to see what's out there? The answer is yes, Max.
I think it is. I mean, I think it is. I think that it's a good place to start. I think that if you don't know what kind of organizations or what specific kind of roles you want to look for, then looking at the LinkedIn's and the Indeeds and the other job boards of the world is really important. I would add, though, that once you've done that work and that broad, like deep dive into different areas, think about what organization specifically you want to work for, like that. So that's something that I've been spending a lot of time the last month or two. Particularly, I found out that I can graduate early, I think like literally less than a month ago, and I just started looking at different organizations I'd either interviewed for a past project or that I had read about in an article for my class, or I'd had a conversation with maybe someone at that organization or just online. And I created an Excel sheet that I'm still working on of the organization, what industry it falls in. Obviously, environmental is like obviously under the background of that, but journalism, research, public service, some of them overlap, and then the roles that are either open now or roles that you want to have, because just because it's not open now doesn't mean things can't change in 5 months, in a year, in a few years. But you have to keep stock of that, and
Yeah.
that's been very empowering for me because I've had the time to think, oh, I know I want to do those buckets of fields, but what organizations do I want to work for? What do I want to spend my time doing? Like you mentioned, that brings me joy. Like, it's really
So,
important.
for those of you who are looking to pivot into the environmental space or just have nowhere to start, Max made a great point. Job board, and I'm gonna spit off seven on LinkedIn. There are these seven job boards and platforms that came into my feed just today as we were, because Big Brother's always listening and watching, and for some reason this came into my feed. Here are seven job boards, and I'm going to put these in the comments a little later. The Green Job Boards by Chrissy Drutman. I don't know if you're connected or following her, Max, but Chrissy Drutman is a climate activist and climate communicator, and she started the Green Jobs Board. This is all on LinkedIn. You can find them. There's another one called Work on Climate. There's another one called Terra Do, TERRA .dl, Terra Do. Climate Base, Work for Impact, the Green Jobs Network, which is different than the Green Jobs Board, and then B Lab, which is a different job board. I'll post these on the comments, but these are seven job boards that are focused on climate and sustainability based jobs. If you just need ideas for what roles are out there, and then if you actually want to apply, go ahead and apply, or do a little research to figure out who's working at these organizations already and see if you're already connected or one degree of separation away from the organization, and then see if they can get your cover letter and your resume or application to the top. Max, I'm going to spit off two other things before we take off that I think is really important for experienced professionals and frankly for entry level people to do if they're seeking opportunities. And we spoke about this, Max, for a few minutes. We Oh, Stanton commented, yeah, these are not legal jobs. This is just generally environmental jobs, and you're absolutely right, Stanton. These are not for legal jobs, and Max is not an attorney, but these are just general, green jobs boards. Um, Something that I think is really creative is right now we're seeing an influx of money going from the federal government to nonprofit organizations and states for environmental projects. Environmental justice is one of them, water infrastructure, all these things. You can literally, every time the EPA puts out a press release for where the money is going, they name the organizations. Then you can figure out where the money is flowing, and you can reach out to those organizations if you feel that you can be a valuable member of their staff for that specific project or for something else. Because typically, when an organization gets $3 million for a specific project that's a 2 or 3 year long project, they need different roles. They need technical roles. Sometimes they need just HR roles. Sometimes they need field people. Sometimes they need communications people. So you can be a little creative by literally following the money. Follow the money, and you'll see press releases from your state agencies and from the federal government where the money is literally flowing to. Um, Something else that I would advise, and I know this is a little old school, but get out there, find an organization that is doing great things. They're usually putting on networking events, sometimes trade associations, sometimes organizations, and it might be in your town. Sometimes, yes, maybe it's you don't, if you don't drink alcohol, then go to the happy hour and have a club soda. Just show up. Most of the times, just showing up and being present with people will open up opportunities. Um, Max, we've gone a few minutes over, the 12:45 time slot. It's my program, so I can do whatever I want with it. But any final, kind of words of advice that you would give to somebody who wants to enter into the profession, on a sustainability or environmental path?
Yes, totally fine with going over a few minutes. Thank you for noting that, though. I would give two more concrete, potentially kind of steps for people just starting to get into the space that maybe don't know necessarily what they want to do. And then one more general, just closing statement. I learned from one of my current supervisors about this platform called Forage, and they do these virtual internships, free internships, that are kind of module based. And so I don't necessarily want to go into consulting, and this isn't an endorsement necessarily of this specific organization, but Ernst and Young has a climate change and sustainability like module system where you would do tasks as if you were an entry level sustainability consultant. And for people that maybe don't have the privilege to be able to do a full internship, or don't have the necessarily don't know if they want to do sustainability consulting, this was just very interesting for me as someone that's trying to figure out where I land in the space. It's like, oh, this is the kind of task that you have to do. Is this what I want to do? And I just thought that was very helpful to me. I can add that to some of the resources that we share. And also, in terms of professional trades, it's something I still need to do. But Society of Environmental Journalists, for those that are interested in environmental sustainability work, they offer grants, not just for nonprofits like me, but for individual research projects. So $1,000 here, like a few $1,000s there for doing reporting on environmental journalism. And there's very many different pockets in that. And there's discounts for students, a discounted membership for students. So that's another organization that, from conversations I've had, is definitely worthwhile looking into. But just to close, it's okay if you don't know. Like, those two past examples are very divergent fields, and I've been able to participate to some extent in both, and it's just helped culminate in where I am now. And it's okay to I would just don't be hard on yourself if you don't know where you want to go just yet. It's not necessarily advised to go straight into grad school right out of undergrad, but if you do know what you're interested in, don't don't let um, don't let perfect be the enemy of the good, for one, to give that little line, but also like just follow your heart. And a lot of the time, if you are really interested and devoted, that's very, very important to any potential employer, I would imagine. And I think you should just go for it. I think if you don't, you'll maybe in 10 years wonder, oh, like what if I didn't, what if I did follow that interest right out of undergrad. um, and yeah, that's
Do
what
it.
I'd leave it with.
I 100% agree with you, Max. Uh, Perfect is the enemy of the good. It's an excuse to delay. And Stanton, to your point, if you're still on the program, there is a legal jobs newsletter that I contribute to regularly called the Planetary Lawyer Project. The attorney who runs that newsletter, Matthew Carmel, he curates specifically jobs, for environmental jobs and jobs and sustainability for attorneys. And that's a fantastic resource. He sends out that newsletter, I think once a week or every 2 weeks. And at the bottom, um, he posts sometimes about a dozen different jobs. Um, Max, I can't wait for our next LinkedIn Live discussion. We'll talk about probably what you're up to at that point. But my goodness, there are so many great opportunities right now, and I think your point, Max, just go ahead and do it. Kind of, it's time for everyone who wants to work in this space to just go ahead and do it. I mean, the time is now. The moment calls for all of us to kind of be in this collective mindset to do what's best for the environment and humanity. And by the way, you don't have to do it all pro bono. You can get paid for this and build a great career. Max, my man, looking forward to our next discussion. I'm gonna leave us off with the song that we started because I'm a big fan of Jay-Z. So have a great weekend, my man.
Yeah, you too. It was really nice. I'm looking forward to the next one.
I mean, listen, it's Friday, man. I'm partying today. What about you?
I'm gonna try to. Um, Sometimes work gets in the way, but
Listen, let's play a little bit. Listen, Max, we'll talk soon, brother. All right?
yeah, sounds good. Looking forward to it.
Take care, man.
Bye.